Controversy has surrounded the 918 since the day it was unveiled at the Geneva Motor Show in 2010. A technology showcase for Porsche's next-generation performance powertrains, it had many people asking why a Porsche supersports car couldn't just have a ball-tearing engine, a carbon chassis and four wheels. Why all this hybrid bullshit? And the gestation of the 918 has been very public, perhaps too public. We've seen naked concepts at NADA, we've had God knows how many engineering seminars, we've ridden in pre-series this and we've driven pre-production that, and we've seen the specifications swell in the face of the competition. Porsche has always insisted that it wasn't responding to the vast power figures claimed for the LaFerrari and the McLaren P1, but I'm not so sure. What is certain is that the 918 is now ready to roll, just 3.5 years after that concept was first shown. Were we, was I, too cynical about the hybrid powertrain? What's the 918 actually like to drive? Does it feel like a normal fast car, or is it something completely new? First off, what a collection of numbers the 918 is. 887 horsepower broken down into a 608 horsepower 4.6 litre V8, a 156 horsepower electric motor working in parallel with the V8 on the rear axle, and a 129 horsepower electric motor powering the front wheels. Personally, I like engines more than motors, so let's start with this stunning little V8, which is derived from the RS Spyder's LMP2 V8. It produces a staggering 132 horsepower per litre, it revs to 9,150 RPM, weighs just 135 kilograms and has no drive belts, chains or pulleys. It uses a flat plane crank, just 13 kilograms in weight, and makes 608 horsepower. It is one of the sexiest street car engines ever designed, and yet it's augmented by not one, but two electric motors. The rear motor runs in parallel and is the most powerful of its type fitted to a hybrid car. Its internals are liquid-cooled, but in a rather fitting nod to Porsche history, the casing and magnets are now air-cooled. Transmission is the 7-speed Porsche PDK, but flipped upside down for optimum weight distribution. You know what, there's just so much trick technology going on in here that it's difficult to cram it into a 10-minute video. There are 5 driving modes, ranging from full electric, which lasts around 18 miles, to a hot lap mode that uses full engine power and depletes all electric reserves too. And remember, this is a plug-in hybrid you can charge from home if you want to. Regenerative braking from the motors works with massive carbon ceramic discs to recharge and stop the thing. There are active aerodynamics for low drag and high downforce. There's even a charcoal filter to stop nasty petrol vapour being emitted after a fuel fill. That's right, the 918 is so clean, even its petrol farts are pre-cleansed. The performance figures are stunning. 0 to 60 in 2.5, 0 to 125 in 7.3, 0 to 186 miles an hour in 20.9 seconds. Top speed is 216 miles an hour. The optional Weissach pack actually saves 40 kilograms and clips 1 second from that 0 to 186 time.
This is the moment I've been waiting for some time. We're going to lap the Valencia circuit, which is very technical and I think a really tough set of this car in the new 918 Spyder. So we're in electric mode, going to drive. How many other cars that have a claimed 887 horsepower can exit a pit lane completely silently like that? There's a bit of clanking, there's a bit of caliper and disc and pad meeting, and now I'm going to go to hybrid mode, to sport mode. Now I do have 887 horsepower, but that engine I just bought in has 608 horsepower, and this mental machine has a claimed 0 to 60 time of 2.5 seconds and will do 0 to 125 Porsche claim in 7.3 seconds. This is a non-Weissach pack car, which, if my memory serves me, is 1,674 kilograms. That's quite heavy for this type of car. So, I need to be disciplined here because this thing does slightly fry your brain. I'll start off by talking about the chassis. Turning into this tight third gear bend here. Okay, the steering, interesting. A really good speed and a nice weight to it, but to me completely synthetic, because of course it is, there's no direct connection. It's electric. But I do have a good idea what's going on at the front axle. Traction, pretty sensational. Can you hear me over that noise? Traction is awesome. This Michelin tyre is very, very special as well. Loads of mid-corner grip. There's a butt coming now. I'm finding in this car that I push the car to kind of 9.4 tenths and I'm speechless at what it can do in the composure, the agility, the speed it carries. But if you overstep that mark and really push it to the last degree, it bites. You're suddenly aware of the fact that it does weigh a lot. Because in normal driving, as I say, below the 9.4 tenths I've specified, it actually doesn't feel that heavy. It feels more like 13 to 1400 kilograms. But that last little bit of the engine, come on, let's move on to the engine because you can hear it. 9,000 RPM, nearly 900 horsepower. Brakes, immense. If you're gentle with it, you can trail it right into the apex as well. But there's a fine line. If you trail it with a little bit too much steering angle, you are in real trouble. It's fast as well, guys. There was a concern this wasn't fast enough. I don't think it's going to be as quick as that Ferrari and that McLaren, but if this isn't fast enough for you, then you're a proper hedonist, because it's pretty bloody terrifying for me. It just picks up and it goes. What do you think to the noise? To me, it's not absolute music, but there's a lot of noise to it. And the throttle response, wow. Wow, 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 wow. I mean, that's a big old kick. I mean, it's Veyron standard in the way that it kicks you in the backside. Am I enjoying it? Yes, I am. Oh God, it's one of those things that I struggle to do the talking and the driving at the same time, having to think a bit here. Ooh. What else do you need to know? The gear shift, faultless. I'm getting a nice little jolt in the back, which reminds me of what I'm doing, but it's smooth, downshifts are brilliantly managed. I think what really is apparent to me here is the kind of disguise act. The 918 Spyder is almost an optical, mechanical trick. It's a car that has been engineered quite superbly to hide its mass, but it can't completely hide it. And it's when you reach that point where it's not hiding it that it does suddenly feel a bit kind of eye-opening. I've had it a couple of times where it's just got a bit twitchy on me in the high-speed stuff. For example, ordinarily I'd get in a car of this type and I'd just turn the systems off, but they're working the whole time. I can feel the stability control working in places that I'm quite there, you see, quite alarmed by. So for the moment, I'm leaving it all on. But wow, if you'd shown me the spec of the car like you did, well, like they did 2 years ago, and told me it would drive like this, I wouldn't have believed you. I really wouldn't have believed you. Blinking Ada. Does it feel 2.5 to 60 and 7.3 to 125? Too bloody right it does. I'm really interested by how much I want the systems to stay on. Normally I'd be wanting them to switch off, but there's stuff going on here that feels quite grown up to me. There. Thank you, Mr. Computer. I probably would have spun without you. Maybe we ought to switch them off at some point and see what happens. Woo, woo, woo! Oh. Proper car. Proper car. Oh yes. Oh, let's have a cool down. Me and the car. That's really that's a new thing. That's a new thing. I was in race mode, so we weren't in the hot lap mode, but we had the full power. In summary, after that little drive, we'll do some more talking in a minute because you know I like talking. Wow, a bit speechless at what the performance level is. It's mind-bending. I'm quite surprised at how much I'm leaning on the chassis electronics in the car. I didn't think I'd be leaning on them quite that much, but I really am using them the whole time, really. I'm not sure I'd want to turn them off. I've not driven a car that I felt that way about for a long, long time. So I'm partly hugely respectful to the calibration team that have made these chassis systems that can handle all of this, but equally, when you factor in the slightly synthetic steering, it does feel like the 918's kind of letting me enjoy what it decides I can enjoy and what it permits me as being capable of and safe of trying. And I'm safe to try, sorry. I'm kind of grateful for that. It's a whole new thing, that's what it is. You know, when I left the pits to come and drive this thing at this speed, I did so under full electric power. Whether you like it or not, you can't deny that's a pretty cool concept. Wow. Wow, 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 wow.
Now, hands up, it took a few beers and a night's sleep to summon the courage to find out what the 918 was like without computer guidance. At first it felt entirely foreign and completely knife-edged. Suddenly you become aware of all the weight and you have to adjust your inputs. Small amounts of steering lock, gentle on the throttle, try to feel what's going on, and then the 918 starts to move around. When you consider that in race mode, with all the ESP switched off, the car is still juggling torque from 2 motors and a petrol engine, and that somehow the engineers have tuned all of this, motors, 4-wheel steering, 4-wheel drive, to allow an idiot like me to drift, you realise that above all else, the 918 is the most complicated and most impressive piece of car calibration ever achieved. And then there's the powertrain. Massive torque from the motors melds seamlessly into high RPM power from the V8. The effective power band is just huge. You genuinely have no idea it's a hybrid. Anytime, any speed, it just goes.
I suppose we never should have doubted them, should we? When I drove the prototype 918 earlier this year, I was full of scepticism about the size, the weight, the nature of the performance, and whether this car needed to be a hybrid. Now I've driven the finished car, it's quite a different object. Frankly, it requires a complete recalibration of what you expect from this type of car. The performance is astonishing. I mean, astonishing. And I'm glad I've had some time to think about it as well, because the first time I drove the car yesterday, I was a little bit worried because the car frankly scared me. It leaned on its electronic system so much that I felt I couldn't turn anything off. And the car felt a bit synthetic, like I was totally detached. Today I've had the confidence to turn a few things off, let it move around a bit, and I'm just absolutely astonished at what they've achieved with it. So whether you view it as a technology exercise for future Porsches, or whether you just view it as the ultimate expression of the hypercar, which for the moment it really is, the 918 is a landmark vehicle. Perhaps the most bizarre thing about this car, though, think of it as the epilogue to the 918 drive, is that whenever we're not shooting the sideways stuff using thick end of 900 horsepower, I leave it in electric mode and I just cruise around silently. It's amazing.